Hello, my friends. Jerry Rosa here in the Rosa String Works Workshop. It is Thursday, February 1st. Hello, February. I got quite a bit to cover today, but I thought we'd just start off with a little bit of a contest. Now, this is one that I truly don't expect anybody to win this. I don't. I just don't. But if you do, if you get the right answer, and I'm pretty positive the right answer is in some of my is in at least one of my videos in the over the past decade. That's why I don't expect anybody to get it, because it's been a long time. But if anybody gets it, then this is what you will win. I'll give you a little hint first. It is an onboard preamp type deal, and pickup. The pickup here, it's an under saddle pickup, I think. But this goes in the side of your guitar, and this goes in your in of your guitar, or someplace else on your guitar, wherever you want it, down on the lower bout or something. And then there's the accessories that go with it. As far as I know, this is new. It's not in a box or anything. I don't think it's used or anything. But you can win that if you can name this tune. I think I've only played it one other time on the channel. I'm going to give you several clues. The only person I think that might get this, honestly, would be Eddie. I don't think anybody else could possibly get this. But Eddie's got like a gazillion guitars, so he could use this preamp. So anyway, if somebody else gets it, I'm going to be very impressed. Okay, it's in A minor. I'm going to give you several clues. It's in A minor. This is a song that I wrote on the very day I finished a custom order mandolin. I built a custom order mandolin for a young lady. So I named the song that young lady's name. Anyway, so I'm giving you several clues there. So you know it's a girl's name is really what it is. And it's her full name, so you got to get the whole thing. Well, if you get the first name, I'll probably give it to you. Because I doubt you'd even get that. All right, and I don't know if I can play it. This is probably the most complicated piece I've ever written. And it's got a lot of chords in it. And this is one of these that I don't think you're going to appreciate it from my playing standalone. There's a whole arrangement behind this song that if you could hear what I'm hearing, you'd be going, oh my gosh, that's pretty awesome. It's got a lot more to it than what you're going to hear here. And I had the band up to speed on it a long time ago when it was different band members. Anyway, we'll just do what I can do with it here, and you just have to use your imagination for the rest. You probably have to use it a lot because I'll probably screw it up. That's one time all the way through it. It's a long arrangement. Anyway, if you can put the name in the comments of that tune, the first one to do that, of course, and I don't even think there'll be one, but if you can put the name in there, you will win this. Okay, moving on. What a way to start off. First of all, I'm doing this out of order, actually, off of my list here, but not that you care. I watched a really cute video this morning on quadruplets. It's identical quadruplets, and they're in the UK. And it's really just a cute story. I mean, doctors wanted to terminate a couple of them because they said there's no way you're going to carry all four to term and all this. And she didn't. She had them prematurely. But these are the four most identical quadruplets I've ever seen. I mean, like, you can't tell them apart. Even the mother couldn't tell them apart for a long time. Now their personalities have developed differently, but as far as the looks go, they look really the same. I mean, usually with twins, like for instance, Mike Patey and his brother, the famous aeronautical guys that are on YouTube all the time, I can tell them apart just instantly as soon as I see them. And they look a lot alike. But these four are little girls, man. I don't see a single difference. There was one that was a little bit smaller than the other ones, and she almost died. She had a lot harder time, making it because they were all preemies. But she's probably the one that has the different personality, too, which is kind of weird. I thought was pretty strange. But anyway, it's just if you're into that kind of thing and just like a cute story, well, there's a link in the videos in the description. All right, moving on to more business-like stuff. Sadie, is the little, what do you call those things? Labradoodle? Yeah, Labradoodle. She's my Labradoodle pup that I've got. And she's about probably 9-10 weeks old now, something like that. Maybe 12 weeks old. I don't know. Anyway, she's doing pretty good. I took her out on a walk yesterday. We were looking for deer antler, and we didn't find any of those. But this was the first time that she's done some of these things. It's the first time that I could direct her to get into the Ranger, my quad that I drive around the shop. She wouldn't get in it before. You'd have to pick her up, put her in there. Well, she got in it every time yesterday, which was a big improvement. And also, and much bigger than that, I told you the way I wanted this to work out was where I could just point to something and say, Sadie, go over and pick that up and bring it here. And she did that twice yesterday, and that was the very first time ever. And I didn't throw any of it. I mean, like if I threw it, she would go get it. That's different because she sees the activity and she chases it and that kind of thing. But to just see something random laying out in the field and say, Sadie, go over and pick that up and bring it here, she did it twice. So it's a big improvement. That makes me think there's at least some hope now because, man, I was beginning to wonder if it was ever going to happen. But it's seeming like it might happen now. So I was pretty stoked about that. I mailed out the CDs yesterday for sure. I may have already said that. I don't know. But anyway, I did get them in the mail yesterday, and one of them had not been paid yet, so that one obviously I didn't send. But there was one I just wanted to know in case the person's watching and maybe they didn't see their email yet. But one of them was going to Canada, and like I was talking about how the shipping has changed, well, it changed on this too. I mean, usually Canada's $1 or $2 more, and I would just eat that. I didn't care. But it was $12.50 more than the $4 I had already allowed for. So, the CD is only $12. So the shipping was $16.50 to go to Canada. So I sent that person a note that, if you want to pay the additional, fine, I'll send it. And if not, then I'll refund your money. So in case you're watching, you'll know that happened to you. Okay, moving on down. The title of the video today is about the Sawmill. I went out, it got pretty warm here yesterday afternoon. It was in the low 50s, whatever. And the sun was shining. That's the big thing. Because, man, it's so depressing to go out there when it's just real overcast and cold on top of it. I can't get motivated nowadays. In the past, I could have just worked through that. But nowadays, I just don't. It's just not in me to get out there and do it. But with the sun shining, that made me get out there and do this. And so I worked on the Sawmill yesterday. I got it. You have to kind of dust off the thing and kind of, your first time you're using it for a while, there's a lot of little things you got to tend to. So I tended to all those things, got the log on there, and this was a tiny log. This log at the small end was 10 inches, 11 inches, probably 11 inches. I kind of measured it. I didn't measure it accurately. I was more measuring toward the center. And every time I'd measure toward the center, it was about 5 inches. So that would tell you it's about a 10-inch log. Anyway, very small. And I got a lot out of that log. So here's a video to show you kind of, well, it kind of gives you some background on the sawmill too. It's kind of an all-inclusive video, and it's only about 5 minutes long, or a little less than that actually. So here you go. Well, my friends, I heated up the old sawmill and sawed one log. I got a lot of lumber out of that for just one little tiny log. It was only a little 10-inch log. And I got 6-inch wide by 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 boards. Really did a nice job. You know, this will be what I'm going to use as the board and batten siding for that water wheel. It looks dirty now, but that's because of the wet sawdust that's sticking to it, because I was using water as I sawed this. I want to leave the saw marks on it. Each one of these boards is at a finished 3/4 inch size already. I'm not going to plane them or sand them or anything. I'm just going to nail them up, make it the old rustic look. They're perfect already. I cut them at 3/4 of an inch finished size because, you know, instead of cutting them a full inch like most people do, every 7th cut or so, or 8th cut, will save you a whole nother board. So, you know, it really does make a lot more yield out of your little tiny boards. And this isn't all. This is just the finished lumber. So let me show you the other slabs and things that I still have that can be used for small stuff. So here's the slabs that were left over. This top board here is a little bit thicker than 3/4, but it's got a lot of wane on it, as you see. But you could still cut a pretty decent width board out of that, a 4-inch board or something, and make it a pretty decent board. Similar to this, I could probably get a 3-inch board or so out of this one. Now this one is 3/4, and then these last two are also 3/4, but you could get a pretty good board out of these. So, you know, I don't throw them away. I'll just leave them there standing. Those are not important, but if you get in a pinch and you need one little board or something, well, you can just throw those through the table saw, clean them up, and use them. For the record, for the most part, this is the only waste that came off of that one log. Not too bad. I didn't bother taking any video of sawing that lumber yesterday. I just wanted to, you know, work out the bugs because I hadn't used this for quite a while, and everything really went really well. The only problem I had at all is that the sawdust is building up on that rail, and I had to clean it off. As you can see, it probably right there, there's some sawdust built up. And so I had to keep cleaning that rail off. Otherwise, it bounces on that, and that gives you the wiggle waggle that I always have with the saw. It goes like this. And when you have that built up on there, that causes that. So I'm going to make a little guard or something that goes, somehow hangs under that blade, but over that rail somehow. I'm going to try to do that. That way it'll keep the sawdust off that rail. Like I said, I didn't take any video of this in use, but here's what it looks like on the inside. I bought that little engine for around $319, about the same as what I think I paid for my laser cutter. I've been upgrading the battery. I finally put a large deep cycle battery on it. That's changed everything. That's really nice. My sawmill goes up and down on these screws, this big screw. It comes up and down right here. It's really nice the way it works. It's very, very precise. I have a water bucket here that puts water on the blade. I really couldn't be much happier with it. Overall, it's just about as good as a guy could want for a private sawmill. I mean, if I was trying to do production work, cutting lumber for other people, this would not get it. But for my own personal use, this thing's perfect. It's really very, very good. Well, I made myself a guard for here. You can see this little piece of angle iron, and here's the blade, and the sawdust was coming off here, falling right on top of this. Well, the angle iron itself may not be enough, but I can always put a little piece of sheet steel on here, kind of like where my hand is, and then the sawdust couldn't get on here, I don't think, at all. That is just held on by a little metal bracket back here that bolts up there on the top. There's just one bolt that holds it in place, and that seems to be really good. I think it's going to serve its purpose. I thought I'd show you that if it's necessary, there's a threaded hole right here
that I could also put a scraper on this to scrape this clean. So I could mount something on here that would come over and ride on this and keep this cleaned off. So I might do that too if I need to, but I'm going to wait and see if I really need that.
So yeah, I did a lot. And here's a little closer look at that, and you can see the saw marks in it, and perfect for what I'm doing. I want this to look like a rustic old sawmill. I don't want it to look like something brand new with, shiny paint and all that, So this is going to be perfect. Now these boards will turn gray over time, or what looks like gray to me. I don't know what color they actually turn. It's probably some brown gray color, I guess. But anyway, it really did work out well. And for such a tiny log to get that much wood out of it, I was just floored. So this will cover about four vertical feet of the building, maybe even a little bit more than that. The way you do this is you put these standing up straight up and down for the siding, and you leave a little 1/4 inch gap between every board, and then you go back with what they call a lath, or a batten, I guess, board and batten. I don't know if that's what they call it, a batten. But anyway, you put this little strip that covers the seam. So you have a board, a little strip, a board, a little strip, a board, a little strip, all the way around the building. And that's the way this particular building right here was built also. The one I'm in right now, it's got board and batten siding on it. So it's kind of keeping with the theme for another idea there. Let's see. Let's get into the comments and see what we got. Did we get a winner? I seriously doubt anybody's going to get this. I really just doubt it, because I think I only played it one other time on the channel, and maybe 2 times. I don't know. But it's really my favorite instrumental that I've ever written. It's got a beautiful arrangement. It really does. If you can get the band tight on it, it's just cool. It's just a cool sound. But that's the problem, is getting the band tight on it, because it's a tough song. Okay. Looks like Rod Wintler's got his place right at the top again. He's not going to give out his secret how he does that. Gary Hayden is there, East Tennessee, Dottie Hildebrandt, and Dottie Hildebrandt says, Rod, would you sleep in one morning so I can be first? That's funny. Moving on down, looking for question marks. Dottie Hildebrandt says, hey Jerry, do you feel like I chirped this morning? Do you feel like I chirped this morning? Well, I kind of already did. I didn't sing, but I played. Anyway, moving on down a little more. I got most of that tune right. I fumble. I always fumble something, and I fumbled a couple of notes and places there, but it was mostly there. Just looking, some of these are longer, so I'm kind of scanning them to see if there was a question embedded in there somewhere. But if you would, try to put question marks on it if you want me to cover it. There's Papa Tom says, good morning, Jerry, from Franklin, Wisconsin, I guess it is. Do you see our profile pictures in the chat window? It's super tiny on here. It's very tiny. I can't make out hardly anything. The people that have their full face in there, I can sort of see it. I can tell it's a face. That's about it. I can't even tell who they are, so I can't really see it. I can tell it looks like you might be holding your guitar. You said it was a Martin, didn't you say? I think it's a recent one. I can't remember now what the date was, but the spoken song says, "How about that pucker factor?" Well, if you were seeing me cut one of those slots live on an expensive guitar, you'd be seeing the pucker, boy. Trust me. You move very slow when you're doing that. I mean, like so slow. You just can't Yeah, you cannot even go too slow. Chip Woods there. Thank you for the in-depth look into your go-to jigs. Have you ever thought about writing a book on making instruments? Oh, it's crossed my mind, but I don't know. I don't know that I'm the expert on it. I do what I do. Carolyn Fike, Jerry, it would be interesting to take a poll to see how many folks in the chat are Luthiers. Yeah, well, let's just kind of sort of do that. Yeah, if you're a Luthier, just say so. Just write Luthier in your comment there, and we'll take a look and just see how many are. Dottie Hildebrand says, Jerry, you need to write a book on your life and experiences. I would buy it. I'll bet it would be the bestseller. Be sure to put your book about how you Dad treated you. Yeah. I hate to make it sound out like he was super mean. What I mean by it is that he went on his own when he was like 12 or 13. His parents divorced. So he started working at a gas station and living on his own. He dropped out of school. I think he only had a 6th grade education. And, boys, that don't mean a whole lot, especially out in the country. His 6th grade education, probably wouldn't be as comprehensive as his 6th grade education these days. So you could take that into account. And all he knew was hard work, and that's all he knew, And he did really well for himself. I got no complaints. I'm very proud of what he accomplished. But he was very hard on me, I can tell you that. Carolyn Fike, I'm a writer and an editor, and I would donate my skills to help you write it. Well, I appreciate that. I don't know that I'm a book writer, but I've written a lot of stuff over the years. I wrote giant documents for Southwestern Bell. You'd be surprised what I've written. So I'm into the writing thing. I know how to do it and how to go about it, but having an editor to look at it is always good. But then again, we did a lot of that editing too. Trust me, to make sure that the documents I wrote for Bell were right. So I'm fairly familiar with all the processes, and I started writing some books a long time ago, but I don't know. I just couldn't stay enthused about it. One of the books I started to write was my theory on everything. I think that could have been a bestseller, but I just gave up on it. Dottie Hildebrand, I'm not Carolyn, but because of Jerry, I'm learning to play. Well, thanks. That's good to hear. Let's see. Carolyn says it inspired a lot of folks. Well, I feel like I've definitely helped a lot of folks in terms of instrument building and repairs and things like that. I get those comments just constantly. So I'm very proud of that fact that it's worked out and helped a lot of people. Moving on down here. Papa Tom says, it ain't easy being me or hide glue, humidifier, pucker factor. So I guess those are titles for the book. I could write a book on everything you ever wanted to know about hide glue. It would only be 1 page long. While we were chatting, has some good ideas, but Jerry may not think it's such a good idea. No, I appreciate it, and I even appreciate the suggestion. I just don't know if I'll ever do that. I kind of want to do it. I always have kind of wanted to do it, but I just don't know if I'll ever do it. Bill Webb, good morning, Jerry and friends. I'm sitting here waiting and eating a bowl of oatmeal with a sliced banana with cinnamon and honey on the side. Woohoo! Got to keep that girlish figure. Yeah, that's kind of me too. But I do that by just eating the 3 main food groups: sugar, salt, and preservatives. That's all I eat, and that way I keep my girlish figure. and I can't walk by a Geiger counter either. No. Anyway, Yolanda's music. Good morning, Jerry. I hope he's doing well with his test there. Another freezing morning in Pennsylvania. Cancer scan is all good. Awesome. Very awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. Prayers work. Don't have to come back for another 6 months. Well, that's great. Awesome. Really good news. Matt Thomas says, great playing, Mr. Rosa. Well, thank you. It's as good as I can do. That's all I can tell you. Dottie Hildebrandt, Jerry, why we were waiting for you, we decided you should write a book and all the interesting facts about your life. Well, maybe. I'd like to do it, but I just doubt it'll ever happen, honestly. It's just a motivation thing, and I don't know that I'm motivated enough to do it. Let's see. Bill says it was 75 in Commerce yesterday. Bonzo, enjoy your videos very much. Do you use alcohol or water-based dyes? And the answer is yes. Because they're actually both. The dyes I use from Phoebings, they're, I guess, technically alcohol-based dyes, but water works with them to some degree also. You can wash a little bit of them off these days. Now, the old the old dyes they had that were alcohol-based, man, they were permanent. You get that on, and even these really are, I would call them permanent, but they'll wash off a little better now with water than they used to. And water, I'm trying to think where did I use water and how did I didn't use much water with them, I'll be honest with you, but you could, like I would use alcohol to smear them around and to blend the sunburst and all that. But water, if you get water on it, it's going to bring some of it off also. But they're technically alcohol-based. Bill Mumbo, Jerry, I'm a bit late, had some terrible news. Friend's daughter passed away. Oh, so terrible. Just very sorry to hear that. Moving on down, still looking kind of for question marks. He says, Irish or Gypsy Rose is the name of that song. Nope, that's not it. I don't see any guesses really because it's you either know that one or you don't. And I think if Eddie was on here, and I haven't seen Eddie on here for quite a while actually. Hope he's doing okay. But if anybody would know it, it would be Eddie because that guy seems to know more about me than I do. Bill Carter, Luthier for 25 years, mostly violin, viola. Well, that's cool. Jelvis Skidmark's band says he's a luthier. And Paul Akers says luthier. Spike Moto, I have often wondered if board and batten exterior will keep water out as well as clapboard siding. Your thoughts? Well, it's not meant to be perfect, I can tell you that. But it keeps it out. I mean, I've never had any problems. I don't have water coming through or anything. Before I put the insulation up, it was perfectly dry in here. But I had this closed cell spray foam insulation, the expensive stuff, sprayed on there because of that for one thing, and also because I wanted to keep the rodents out, and it's worked very well for that. But no, that type of board and batten siding, it's been around since Hector was a pup, and it's pretty good stuff, really. And it'll look good on this Sawmill, I think. I mean on the water wheel. Bill Webb, I don't consider myself a luthier, maybe a tinkerer. I can't build instruments, I just work on them. Well, a luthier is pretty much anybody that's working on those instruments. I would call you a luthier. Michael Boyle says luthier, non-denominational. And let's see, Michael Ragusa there. And then Ben Boyd, he says, I'm not a luthier, but I did stay in a Holiday Inn last night. Yeah, see, that's my idea of camping. It's poor room service at Holiday Inn. Bill Webb, I'd buy the Theory of Everything book. Yeah, I've got my theories on everything, and it would probably make some people mad, and it would make a lot of people think, and it would make other people think like you're an idiot. That's probably the reason I didn't do it, because there's going to be three reactions pretty much. Jerry Hyde, brother, luthier, wood turner, cabinet maker, welder, mechanic, lots more. Yeah, well, that's kind of me, I guess. You just kind of described me there. I kind of do a little bit of everything. Good morning, Jerry, and viewers, have a great day. That was Clyde. And Kent with the K9AEE, Sierra Hall. No, I only wish that would be Sierra Hall. I'll give you some more clues, and I definitely have mentioned the girl's name on here probably many times, because I've told stories about youngsters that I've taught on how to play mandolin and things. I'll just tell you a little bit of background story about this girl. I'm trying to remember not to say her name so I don't give it away. I don't know that it was the first time I met her, but it was one of the first times I met her was at a bluegrass festival. It was at the Garrison Campground, and I can't remember where that was now. Is that in Steelville? I think it's Steelville. I can't remember where that was. That's kind of bad to forget where it was. But anyway, we used to have. I was the chairperson of the MABC, the Missouri Area Bluegrass Committee, and I was putting on festivals at different locations, or the committee and I were putting them on, and we were running a festival at Garrison's Campground. Well, anyway, this young girl, she was about at the time maybe 10. And I showed her a few chords on a mandolin, and and then from that moment on, she was in my shadow the whole time. I mean, the whole time. You can't say that she was in my shadow. I mean, like if I would step backwards, I'd step on her. I mean, she was next to me the whole rest of the festival, all day long, every day. She followed me. And one of the cute things really cute was, it was really cute. There was I know their names, I can't think of them, two sisters that played bluegrass. I can't think of their names. Anyway, they were sitting on this wall, and they were sitting a little bit apart, so I just walked up, and so I just sat right between them, and I was talking to them. And so the little girl, she's like, she's left out, and so she's just standing there in front of me, and she's like, and all of a sudden she goes like this, could you just move over so I could sit there? So she tells that one sister to move over. So anyway, she's got up there and sat down. She wanted to be next to me, And it was pretty funny. And so she followed me around like that. Well, then over time, I, gave her formal music lessons. And then eventually their family wanted to have me build her a custom mandolin. So I did. And then she got into it big time. And her brother was already into it on the guitar. Her brother was already really pretty darn good on guitar. And between the two of them then they had the rest of their family. And their father had played bluegrass years and years earlier. And he already knew how to play banjo. So he was playing banjo. And then the mother learned how to play bass. And then they took their act down to Silver Dollar City. And on the open mic competition, which is bands from all over the United States. I mean, it's a big competition, or at least it used to be. I don't even know if they still have it, but it was a big competition at the time. And she was the front person of the band. She did all the talking and everything. So, and by this time she's like 12 or 13, I don't know. But anyway, they won the whole competition down there. So I was really proud of that. But anyway, if you can think of her name, then you'll know the name of that tune. Let's see if anybody else has made any more guesses. There was Sierra Hull, and then Carolyn Fike, the old-time Florida Pioneers built with board and batten, and it's really wet climate. Yeah, it works really well. It really does. I'll tell you where the biggest problem with board and batten is insects and mice and things like that. It's not airtight like that. That's your biggest problem with it. Ronald Todd says he's a woodworker who dabbles in guitar repair. And G.V. Russell says, Rhonda Vincent. No, I've met Rhonda a number of times and made recommendations for Rhonda and, talked to her about possibly building her a 3/4 size mandolin. But it never worked out that way. Jeff Puris, the most important thing I have learned is to stick to string changes and biannual truss rod tweaks. Everything else is for professionals. Yeah. Okay. Paul Lanier, my autobiography would have to be sold as fiction. No one would believe the things and the events. Yeah, a little bit like that. I don't know that I've had anything super unusual, but I've had a lot of really cool things happen in my life. Really cool things. Rod Wintler, Jerry Bad Bob guessed Rosemarie McCoy earlier in the comments. Okay, Rosemarie McCoy. Nope, that would not be it. Sorry. Like I said, I don't think anybody's going to get this. The only person I can think of that would possibly get it is Eddie, and there he is down there. We'll see in a minute. I see Eddie D. If that's the right Eddie, I'm not sure. I get mixed up. Theron Corbett, book title, My Life is a Two-Way Truss Rod. Yeah, we don't need two-way truss rods. I can tell you that for sure. Wade Hampton, I want to download your mandolin course. I'm concerned about the size of it. How big is the download? Well, I don't remember, but I'm going to say it's in the neighborhood of 10 gigabytes. I don't remember, honestly, but it's pretty big. So you need to have quite a bit of space. I'd say you need 12 gigabytes of free space on your hard drive to do it. Some people have run into space problems. It's a big deal. It's a I don't know. I've never actually counted it, but I'm going to guess there's 10 to 12 hours worth of video on it if you count every part of it. Moving on down. Yeah, Dottie says, Bad Bob says Rosemarie McCoy. I addressed that one earlier, and nope, that's not it. G.V. Russell, Jerry, you mentioned Southwestern Bell. Were you in telephone business? I was for 43 years. Yeah, I designed, let me rephrase that. I redesigned the BOSS system. At the time when we got BOSS, which was billing and order support system, it was a large mainframe computer system to handle the billing and the order, mostly the billing side for the service reps to talk to customers. In other words, about their bills and things. Their bills were online. And we got that system from AT&T because at that time, Southwestern Bell had been split up from AT&T. Later, they bought it back. They bought AT&T back, which is kind of weird. But AT&T had developed this system. We brought it in-house in Southwestern Bell, and they literally walked around and asked, does anybody want to volunteer to work on the system? And my hand was the first one up. I went like, yep, I'll do it. And so I didn't know nothing about computer systems. I had no training whatsoever. And at that time, personal computers weren't even a thing. It was in the very early 80s. And so I volunteered, and within a few months, I took to it like a duck to water, and within a few months, I wouldn't say running it. I wasn't running it by any stretch. I was never the boss, the head boss, but I was, had a lot of responsibility, let's say it that way, and I understood what the programmers were doing very quickly on. I mean, it just clicked, and lots of people never got that. They just never did get it, and I could tell when they were pulling the wool over our eyes. And I'd say, no, if you can do this, then you can do that. And they, I wouldn't let them off the hook. And at that time, it was more like the programming to the user at that time, at least at Southwestern Bell, was more adversarial than it was working together. But over time, we worked together, and they knew that, they couldn't pull the wool over my eyes, basically, is what it amounts to. And so they knew they just had to give in. And I wrote, in talking about those documents that I wrote the requirements documents for all those systems, and I completely redesigned the BOSS system. And I didn't do it single-handedly. There was a team of people, but, I had a big role in it, let's just say it that way. And I was mainly over what the user saw on the screen, so I had a big role in it. And anyway, it was just an interesting time, but I enjoyed the heck out of it. So moving on down, let's see, looking for the next question marks. There's Eddie D. I just can't remember if it's the same Eddie. Hi, Jerry. The most important thing I learned is always adjust your action with the truss rod, and hide glue is about the best glue. Ha, ha, ha. Yeah, there you go. Tim Trimble, is it Maxine? Nope. Eddie D. No, I'm a different Eddie. Okay, that's what I thought. Because there's Eddie, my super fan, and I think he spells it E-D-D-Y, I think. But anyway, Eddie the super fan, if he was on here, he might get the answer. But he's the only one I could think of that would get the answer. Ben Boyd, if you do write a book, it has to be titled, It Ain't Easy Being Me. Yeah, I kind of think that would be a good title. I think that's a good title. Wade Hampton, I'm good on available storage for the mandolin course. I really need to learn the Nashville number system. Yeah, well, I really think it would help you. Even if you already know how to play mandolin, I think it would help you. And let me just say this, and again, it might sound a little conceited or stuck up, and I don't mean it that way, but if you can just forget what you already know about chords on your mandolin and stuff and how they relate to one another, if you can just more or less make yourself not try to compare it. In other words, just take what I give you as gospel, if you will, and just take it and just learn it the way I teach it. I think it'll open up all kinds of pathways for you. You'll be going, oh, now I get why that works that way. And you'll get why you'll start to see patterns in the chords that you never saw before. Because when you're thinking in terms of letters, there's no real patterns. I mean, some people would argue with you that there are, but there's not nearly the patterns that you will see when you start thinking in numbers. When you start thinking in numbers, gosh, it just changes your life. The patterns are so easy to spot when you're talking about numbers because the numbers never change. The letters always change every time the key changes. But with numbers, the numbers stay the same no matter what key you're in. And therefore, you start to see the patterns. You'll see a 1-4-5, 1-4-5, 1-4-5, 1-4-5. You'll see a 1-4-1-5, 1-4-1-5. You'll see that pattern. And it doesn't matter what key you're in, that pattern is the same. And then there's like the circle of fifths is 1-6-2-5-1, 1-6-2-5-1. And you'll see that pattern, and it happens all the time. You'll hear that in songs, and you'll go, where'd that go? What was that? And then you'll instantly know it's a 1-6-2-5-1. And bingo, you just know where to go to do it, And you'll start to see things. I wrote down 11 rules in the Nashville number system. 11. These are my rules. You'll never see these anywhere else. You'll never see them anywhere else. I guarantee you. These are 11 things I noticed within the Nashville number system that I'm sure other people notice them, but they notice them in a different way, if you will, if that makes any sense. But you'll start to see things that happen. Like if you're in letters, if you said, okay, where do you go after an A chord? You can go anywhere. Well, that's true. But if I said, where do you go after a 2 chord? There's almost a black and white definite answer. And the answer is a 5 chord. If I said, where do you go after a 3 chord? There's almost a black and white definite answer. I say almost because there's always exceptions. But it's like if you can guess 90 to 95% of the time and guess correctly 90 to 95% of the time, what did you just do to your music understanding? You just took it through the roof compared to you don't have a guess at all. And so that's why it's so important to learn that Nashville number system. I fought it for years. People would come in my band and they would say things like, you ought to learn the Nashville number system. I think it'd help you out a lot. And I'd go, I don't need to know that because I already know all the chords and I know how to change, and do all this. And finally, and I've told this story before, but finally I was going to give group lessons in Rolla. Had a big group of people. I don't know, there's 40, 50 people that wanted lessons, group lessons. And I thought, gee whiz, before I do that, I better learn the Nashville number system because somebody's sure going to ask about it, and I'm going to look like an idiot in front of all these people and say, I don't know what that is. So one day, I was in my recording studio, and for those of you who don't know, I ran a recording studio for a long time, 12 years probably, and recorded lots and lots of CDs for lots of people and did other things too. But anyway, so I'm just sitting in my recording studio all by my lonesome, and I started working through the Nashville number system, trying to understand it. And as I was doing this, the lights were just coming on, man. I'm like, golly, I should have learned this a long time ago. It makes all kinds of sense. There was just things that just started clicking. And I'm going, I used to think that was difficult. Now it's really simple, and it's just those kinds of thoughts. And I can't speak highly enough about it. But I also think it's, if you just go into it, if you just think you're just going to learn it on your own kind of thing, I got to tell you why it meant more to me in a minute. I'll tell you about that. But first, I just want to say, if you just say, well, I'm not going to buy your program, I'm going to go learn it off of somebody else. The difference is they will teach it to you in a different way. They will teach it to you, probably teach it to you like this, let's say you're playing in G. Well, G is 1, A is 2, B is 3, C is 4, and D is 5. And it goes up to 7, but we're just going to stop at that because I got one hand. I only got 5 fingers on one hand. So you got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That's how people think of the Nashville number system. I don't think of it like that at all. I never go to my hand to figure it out. Whatever chord you start on, that would be a number. See, if you started at A, well, then A would be 1, B would be 2, and just so forth and so on. I don't think of it like that. Because I teach it on the mandolin, it's almost like the mandolin was, it was like the Nashville number system was designed by a mandolin player, is the way I'd like to say it. Because when you think of it on the mandolin, and you go with my training, which is where I teach you just one chord on the mandolin. I don't teach it, a different chord for every, a different shape for every chord. I teach you one shape for all the chords. When you start thinking like that and you tie it into the Nashville number system, it just makes music so simple. I used to think music was crazy hard. I really did. But I don't think it's hard at all anymore. It's so simple. At least understanding the music and all that. It still takes practice and all that kind of thing. But the understanding of the music is so simple. And, if you try to learn it in the formal sense where you're learning all the notation and all the stuff and, all the measures and all that, that's complicated. The way I teach this is so simple, and it's all about common sense. It really is. So, yeah, consider this a commercial for my training, but I'm just trying to explain to you that if you can take the training and not the problem I've seen with other people trying to do it is every single thing I say, they try to compare it to what they already know. And I would like for you, if you do get the training, do not do that. Do not try to compare it to what you already know. Just take it and let it build and grow on you, and you'll start to see all these patterns. And there's a lot more patterns. There's 11 rules that I wrote down that are pretty much black and white rules that you'll never get in any other kind of training or any other kind of comparative understanding of music. And like I said, where do you go after a 2-chord? Well, who would think that there's a place to go after a particular chord? But there is. And it happens almost every time. And then I'll even show you why there are some exceptions to it. But there's not that many exceptions. So when you're guessing, like if you heard a song for the very, very first time, and you hit that 2-chord, well, you almost instantly know where you're going next, just because of that, just because of those rules. Wouldn't that make things a lot simpler if you knew where you were going to go just the moment you hit a particular chord? Yeah, it's got to make it simpler. I mean, just stop and think about it. All right, I blew that to death. But anyway, I hope that makes sense to you guys. And if you've been on the fence about learning music, I seriously think the way to do it is to buy yourself a cheap mandolin, get my mandolin course, and go to town. And I think you'll thank me later. I've had so many complimentary letters on that training. It's unbelievable. And honestly, and I'm not saying there hasn't been anybody that's been dissatisfied. In fact, I would imagine there's a lot of people, because you know how music in general is hard to do. I mean, I'm not saying it's simple to do, but the way I train it, it's the simplest way it can be. I mean, I don't think you could make it any simpler, period. I don't care who's training it or who's explaining it. I don't think you can make it any simpler. So there's a big brag. I'm sorry, but that's just the way I feel about it. Moving on down. I've lost my place now for sure. Yeah. Let's see. DE says, Jerry, my Fender Parlor classic guitar has a hairline crack running from the bridge down to the bottom. When I took it in, they told me to humidify it to prevent from getting worse. Yeah, well, to some degree, they might be right about that. I mean, to some degree. It's hard to explain. There may be some truth to it. I'm not saying there's no truth to that. But it's also, I'd have to see it to know really what the problem is. My guess would be, and it's just a guess, is that the wood when they built it wasn't as dry as they thought it was. That would be my biggest guess, and the wood has dried out some more since then. Because there's something, I've said this before, but I haven't said it in a long time. Furniture, when they dry wood in a kiln for furniture, guess what they dry it down to? 10, 12%, and it's good to go. Well, they dry your guitar down to 6%. That's a whole lot drier. In one way of thinking about it, in a relative sense, it's twice as dry as furniture. So wood can expand exponentially. It just can expand like crazy. I mean, guitars I'm talking about. But they can't dry out much more, period. So, yeah, they might be right. But if they are right, then my best guess would be that your guitar wasn't as dry as it should have been when they built it. That's my best guess. Then again, it could also be a different thing. It could be that guitar was built in a real humid area or humid climate of the country, and again, it wasn't dried as well, and now you're in a drier part of the country, or maybe your house is really dry or something like that, and it could have that kind of effect also. So there can be some truth to it. I am not saying that never happens. I'm just saying in general, you don't need to humidify your instrument in general. But yours may be an exception, and there are exceptions. The Freeze. They no longer have bluegrass competition at Silver Dollar City, but they do have the Bluegrass Month. Okay, cool. Should I worry about the crack? I'd keep your eye on the crack. It could also be something else. There could be some pressure. That's another thing that happens a lot, and especially with Gibsons. Is yours a Gibson? I don't remember what you said there. It's a Parlor classic guitar. But especially with Gibsons, and I mean, at least I hate to pick on Gibson, but I've noticed it with Gibsons more than anybody. And that is, I think they put their sides, I think they bend their sides and there's still tons of stress in their sides. In other words, their sides don't want to be in that shape. They want to be out here like this. And the evidence of that is you take the top or the back off a Gibson and bingo, the sides go like that. I mean, they do it every time. It doesn't matter if it's a really old one or a new one. They just do that. So if it's something like that, maybe that's another possibility, is that your guitar was built, with a lot of stress, and it's just pulling it apart, and it's got nothing to do with humidity or anything. So, I mean, there's all kinds of things, and I'm not saying I'm right 100% of the time. I'm just saying that there's a lot of factors, and it's not always just humidity. In fact, I would say it's rarely humidity. Anyway, it can be humidity. So I'm just trying to explain that I'm not hard-nosed about it. What I'm hard-nosed about is the myth. And the myth is that you got to humidify every guitar out there, and it needs to be humidified. And when you stop and think about, do you humidify your couch? I guarantee you your wooden frame on your couch has shrunk way more than your guitar has, because your couch was dried down to 12% and your guitar was dried down to 6%. Anyway, there you go. Moving on down. Let's see. Her name is Kelly Ann. Nope, that's not it. You guys are just going to guess any and every name, aren't you? Nelson Watkins. The Peterson family. The title of the girl is Julianne Peterson. Nope. But that Petersons are cool. They're a cool family, and I don't know them personally at all. I don't want to make it sound like I do, but I've watched them on YouTube, and it's very cool. Very cool. The Freeze. Is there a good local source for tone woods in Missouri? By the way, good morning. Well, yeah, the fellow in Fulton, Old Standard Wood, John Griffith is his name. Anyway, it's Old Standard Wood, John Griffith, and he's in Fulton, Missouri. You can probably Google it and find it, and if you can't and you just can't come up with it, well, then send me an email, and eventually I'll get back to you. Zappa, Wade Hampton, Jerry's mandolin download is just over 1 gigabyte. Really? I think it's way bigger than that. I'm 99.9% sure it's way bigger than that. And the reason I say that is because it took 4 DVDs, and DVDs, I think, held 4 gig. Wasn't that right? And it took 4 DVDs, so I'm pretty sure it's way bigger than 1 gig. Daddy Hildebrand, love your vlog this morning, Jerry. Okay, good. Thank you. Moving on down. Wade Hampton, thank you so much for that wonderful explanation on all the national numbering system. I'm really excited about it. Well, good. I don't know. It just keeps. I'm patting myself on the back. But honestly, I've never done anything where I've gotten more compliments. That's the thing. The compliments are nuts. I mean, like they'd say, "Oh, I wish I would have learned this 30 years ago. I'd be in Nashville now. I wish I would have learned this when I was a kid." All this. And truly, it's. Okay, I forgot to tell you how I came up with the way I came up with this. And it goes back to Don. He he told me, he says, you know, I can't hear you. You sound wimpy. You need to learn how to play with double notes. Well, the only way I could figure that out was to play out of chord positions. Well, nobody else does that on a mandolin. Nobody does. They all play, I don't know, for lack of a, they play scales. Everybody does the scales, and they play what I refer to it as playing off the nut. They run up and down the string, if you will. I don't play like that at all. I play out of the chords themselves. Well, try to explain that to somebody. It's really hard to do. Well, the Nashville number system just made that easy to explain, you know, and that's why I finally wrote my training. It was because the Nashville number system explained how I think about music. And it's the simplest way you can possibly think about it. I'm a simple-minded person. Moving on down. Charles Salkowitz, 1 mandolin, 2 ukes, 2 electrics from kits, 1 Spanish classical at binding stage, almost started. You have no idea what you and COVID started. Gary Smythe from the UK. The song is called Hide Glue Blues. Yeah, I'm going to write a book about hide glue. It's going to be a half-page long. Charles Salkowitz, 110% time spent building jigs and templates, etc. 2% time on the instrument keeps this 83-year-old dog going. Yeah, there's a lot of truth to that. You do build a lot of jigs and fixtures and things. Thank you, Jerry. It is a Fender classical parlor guitar. Okay. Well, you know, even Fender could have, you know, a springy instrument, you know, and that can pull it apart. I mean, it really can. It way more than you think. Just think about it. A guitar that's wanting to be bigger, and it's been pulling for, you know, I'm not saying yours is this old, but it's been pulling for 60 years. It's going to pull something apart eventually. You know what I'm saying? And it ain't humidity that caused it. You know what I'm saying? So there you go. Charles Salkowitz, reverse board and batten supposed to provide additional insulation value. Used it once. Okay, well, I don't know. Tony Landis, do you know the song Chocolate Ice Cream Cone? No, I don't think I know that one. Mike Jones, I heard Michael Jackson ask you to play mandolin solo on one of his albums just before he passed. It was a grassroots country album. I'm not mistaken. Could you tell us about that experience? I'm pretty sure you got me mixed up with somebody else on that one. Jerry, the mandolin file collection is larger, but the zip file is 1.6 gig. Well, that might be right. You might be right on that. I don't know how big the zip file is. Yeah, I don't know. Spike's Trailer Park finally saw the saga of chocolate. What an amazing repair and start. Well, thanks. Eddie, do you think maybe someone humidified the guitar, then let it get dry all at once? And that's a very good possibility too. Dottie says she's got to go to the doctor's appointment. Love you guys. Well, that's going to be it, guys. Thank you so much for listening to me, being nice to me. 190 viewers. That's a good number. I hope you got something out of my little Nashville number system talk. I hate to give away too much more of like all my rules. I mean, I don't give that away. I mean, I sell it, you know what I'm saying? But at least you have some idea that there's a bunch of those kinds of rules that you'll never get anywhere else. I don't care, you know, I don't care where training you go to. You'll never hear those certain particular rules that will just change. It changed my life in music. I can tell you that for sure. Because prior to that, I understood it, I kind of could do it, but it always seemed hard. And now I understand it, I can do it, and it doesn't seem hard anymore. It seems easy. And it was all the understanding of the Nashville number system, the way I think about it, not the way everybody else teaches it. There you go. I feel better now. See you guys tomorrow.